Money Matters
On afternoons with Helen Farmer.
with Zurich Life Insurance. Take optimistic action and shape your financial future with Zurich Life Insurance.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Now, do you know the difference between health insurance and critical illness insurance? Or do you think it's practically the same thing? Or do you think I have no idea what you're talking about, Poonam? Well, let's find out from Manoj Poduval, who is head of the Zurich Advisory Network, Middle East. And he's going to share some important statistics around the topic in the UAE region and is here to answer any questions you might have on how to be better prepared if you're faced with the unexpected. You can text us on 4001. You can also do it via the ARN Play app. Call us or WhatsApp us on 04871 5500. Manoj, welcome to the studio. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Poonam. Thank you for having me here.
Now, you need to give us the idiot's guide when it comes to this lingo because, you know, the everyday person isn't a finance expert like you guys. And so we need a very simple understanding about this. What is the difference between critical illness protection and health insurance?
Well, just before I jump into that, I think it's important to acknowledge and appreciate the lot of efforts that the Dubai government or the UAE government in general have taken to make sure the health insurance is mandatory. So at least we can say that most of us who are in any gainful employment in this country have some bit of health insurance. I think that's a great work. So on that note, good question. Health insurance or a health card is basically used to pay for to the medical provider that's treated you for their expenses, right? So if you have a fever, a cough, or a cold, or if you had an accident, you fell down, you broke your hands, or let's talk about if you're pregnant and you want to go and get yourself, treated. All of that is what your health insurance card covers, right? It also treats a bit of the critical illness as well. And I'll come to that part a bit later. So the health insurance card is there to take care of your basic medical expenses that you would incur in your day-to-day life.
So it could be like dental, it could be eye care. Yeah. But you have to read the small print because there have been times when I've got insurance when I was in England. And then when I looked at the small print and I was going to go skiing, that wasn't included in it. So, you know, there's a lot of small prints and not everybody includes the same things, right? So let's talk about critical illness because 2 years ago, my colleague said to me, do you have this? And I said, no. What exactly is it and what does it cover? Please tell me, what kind of things are we talking about when we talk about critical illness?
Okay, so continuing on the first question probably, and then I'll lead into this one. So unlike a medical insurance plan, which pays to the medical provider, the critical illness plan pays you. So if you have a critical illness policy, then God forbid if you're diagnosed with a critical illness, the proceeds of that policy, the coverage amount comes to you. And then you decide how you want to spend it for your treatments, for your recovery, all of that stuff, right? So that's the big advantage of having a critical illness plan. And I would say that everybody, apart from the health insurance, should have a critical illness plan. To answer your question, when your friend asked you, do you have a critical illness plan? You're wondering whether you should buy or not. I think it's like, a car insurance, let's say, right? We buy car insurance because we are mandated to buy car insurance. And we know very well, Poonam, that if something happens to our car, that insurance will cover us. Many people don't buy critical illness policies because they think, it's an expense, right? But think about it from this perspective, that if you're diagnosed with a serious illness, you could wash away with all your life savings if you don't have a critical illness plan just to treat yourself, right?
Well, life is a very risky business, right? It truly is. We don't know what's going to happen. And we do invest in a lot of stuff, but you're saying that we don't also invest in ourselves and what could happen, right? I know there's average prices. I don't want to talk about exact prices. When you're saying you put money into, let's say, a fund for critical illness, if tomorrow somebody gets critically ill, it will come out of that. Someone has texted saying, let's say I save up till 80, right? I'm 40 now. And I have the most amazing, healthy old age life. What happens all to that money?
For the critical illness policy, you mean?
Yeah.
So first of all, it's not a fund. So that's why I took the example of car insurance. It's like you pay the premium to protect yourself for that year, right? In case you're diagnosed with any critical illness. The next year you pay the premium. It's not a yearly plan. It's a plan that you buy from today, whatever your age is, until you're covered, 70, 75, 79, whatever that age. Different critical illness plans come with different age limits. So you pay every year to cover yourself for that year, right?
Right.
So it doesn't add up as a fund or a savings. It's a critical illness plan that you protect yourself against.
What kind of critical illnesses does it actually cover, and what kind of, illnesses are we talking about that maybe health cover wouldn't cover?
So critical illness plan could range from cancer, heart attack, multiple sclerosis, third-degree burns. It could be any. There are some major 34 illnesses that are categorized as critical illness. And at Zurich, our plan covers all these 34 illnesses, right? So in case somebody who has a critical illness plan is diagnosed of any of these diseases, then upon diagnosis, we pay the lump sum amount, whatever the coverage amount was, to that person.
Okay. I've got a text from Anthony. It's just come in. He says, I have had medical insurance in Dubai for 18 years and have never been to the doctors. What are you doing, Anthony, to be that healthy? Should I be asking for a rebate? Can you answer that?
Yeah, I can answer that. Medical insurance policies are usually a group policy.
Yeah.
So your employer then pays for that policy, right? It's not an individual policy that you can ask for a rebate.
Yeah.
But yes, when the renewal comes up for your health card, you can be rest assured your employer would be definitely asking for a rebate from the insurance company if the claims are much less.
Okay. Gary has said, what kind of things are not covered under critical illness?
So your basic illnesses like your fever, your flu, your accidents, and those kind of things are not covered. We're talking about serious critical illness, like I mentioned, cancer, a heart attack, a stroke. Those diseases are covered.
But I suppose each company will have a different list too, won't they? Of critical illnesses.
Generally, they are standard lists.
Generally the same?
Yeah, generally they are standard lists. Some cover all diseases, some don't cover all diseases, right? In our instance, we cover pretty much all the diseases.
Okay.
Right? So.
I mean, we all want to stay positive, but you just never know, do you?
Money Matters
On afternoons with Helen Farmer.
with Zurich Life Insurance. Take optimistic action and shape your financial future with Zurich Life Insurance.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
So, Manoj, we have another text. It's anonymous. It says, how do I know how much critical illness cover I need? Do you have some sort of tool to find that out? And how do I cover the gap between health and critical illness financially speaking? I don't know what the last bit means. Should we start off with the first bit? How do I know how much cover I need?
It's a simple answer. Please talk to a financial advisor and insurance advisor. At Zurich Advisory Network, we have a tool, which it's a digital tool. We've invested in bringing the AI technology and a lot of research that can help our customers to understand what kind of cover they require, how much cover they require. So please talk to a Zurich financial advisor for the first part of it. And for the second part of it, I think if I understood the question well, the person wants to know, how do I cover myself in the difference of the health card and the critical illness? I don't think you should get into all those details. I think it's important for you to understand. They're mutually exclusive, actually. So for you to understand how much of insurance should you buy, and this is different for different people. So you should talk to an expert. But generally speaking, critical illness starts from as low as $150,000 of coverage. It can go up to $2 million of coverage. So what you want, you can sit down with your advisor to understand that, and what you can afford, only you can tell.
Do you think everyone at a certain age should seriously consider this?
Yes, I think anybody who is 18 years and above should consider to buy a critical illness cover, definitely.
So Laura has said, can you get critical illness for the family whereby you buy it for the whole family? So even if a child under 18 is ill, it's covered. Is that possible?
Critical illness plans normally are individual plans. So yes, you could buy for yourself and your spouse.
Yeah.
And at Zurich, what we do is the moment you buy for yourself, we also provide a complimentary cover to your child. It's a smaller amount, up to $15,000, but that's also provided to your child. So yes.
So when Anthony asked, how do I know how much critical illness cover I need? What are some of the basic questions you ask? I'm assuming age, previous illnesses. What is it that you look for where you think someone definitely needs to get this?
Yeah, so I think two parts of it, right? One is let's understand critical illness plan, how does it work, and then I'll answer your question. Because in a critical illness plan, I'm buying a policy. If I am diagnosed with critical illness, I get a lump sum amount, right? So when I get that lump sum amount, I could use that to treat myself, meaning for the treatment, not literally treat myself, for the treatment of the illness, or which means I could choose a very, maybe I go to US, I go to Canada, where I think probably I could be treated better. I could use that money for that, or I could use it for cost of recovery. So that's why critical illness is used, right?
Yeah.
The plan, that's what the plan does. It pays you money and you can use it. That's the first part. The second question of Anthony was, how do I understand how much of insurance I need to buy, right? That was the question that he asked.
Yeah.
That I mentioned you could sit down with an advisor to understand how much of insurance you want to buy.
Yeah.
But also, it could start, as I mentioned earlier, it could start with as low as $150,000, can go up to $2 million. So I hope I answered your question. So this is how you understand how much of insurance you buy. And the questions we ask through the tool is to understand if, God forbid, you are diagnosed with a critical illness, and if that results in probably a situation where you do not have a job, because what we have understood from speaking to a lot of claimants and also through the research that we did, most people, more than 50% of the people, feel that if they have a critical illness tomorrow, they will have to leave the country in 3 months, which means they won't have a job. But they still need to be treated. So the questions we ask on our tool to help customers understand is, how much of expenses do you have every month? And if you're diagnosed with an illness, how many months you might be without job, or how many months would you want to protect those expenses for? Simple questions. It focuses more on people's income and people's expenses. We don't complicate it.
Simple yet realistic, hard questions to talk about.
Money Matters
On Afternoons with Helen Farmer.
with Zurich Life Insurance. Take optimistic action and shape your financial future with Zurich Life Insurance.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
So Manoj Poduval, who's head of the Zurich Advisory Network in the Middle East, is helping me understand what critical illness cover means and if I actually need it. I probably do at my age, to be honest with you. You said earlier about the cost. What do you mean when you say the cost of recovery is not covered by health insurance? What does exactly mean?
What I mean is, normally when we start looking at the cost, we start only looking at the cost of treatment. But what we don't realize is that if someone is diagnosed with a critical illness, there is one expense, which is to treat that illness immediately or as early as you can. But there are financial implications also from a critical illness. I mean, and these are things that we don't think about. When somebody is diagnosed with a critical illness, not just that they go through the emotional and physical pain of the illness, but they could be impacted financially. We've seen so many situations where they don't have an income anymore. I mean, I know of situations where somebody's got cancer and had to undergo a treatment for almost 2 to 3 years. And normally, no matter how much your employer would want to cover you and protect you during that time, they may not be able to do so. So there's many situations where you don't have a job, but your expenses continue to incur. You have to pay for your rent, you have to pay for your child's fees, you have to pay for everything else that you're paying today, plus your expenses. So when you're recovering from the critical illness, and if you do not have an income, and if you still have the expenses to meet, that period is what we call as cost of recovery. Because think about it, you got an illness, you paid a little bit for your expenses, your health card paid a little bit, the rest of it you end up paying. In fact, on the International Women's Day this March, we conducted an event and we invited a surgeon to speak to a group of about 40 women. And she was saying that every single day or month, rather, when she treats somebody for a cancer or any of the serious illnesses, there are so many situations where the health insurance is not enough to take care of the expenses. So what happens is they end up paying from their savings if they have enough, right? Now, mind you, post that also they have expenses like rent, as I mentioned, rent and education, all of those. So when you're recovering, how do you pay for those? A critical illness plan pays you lump sum, which you keep it with yourself. Either you pay for the treatment or you pay while you're recovering for your expenses, for your monthly expenses, or for both. It's entirely up to you.
So Laura has text and she says, I have life insurance. So would I still need critical illness cover?
Absolutely, yes.
Why?
Life insurance covers you in case of death.
And that's it?
Sometimes death and disability. But there are life insurance policies also that can cover you for death and disability, and they can add a critical illness cover as well to it. So if Laura has a life insurance policy that covers her for death, disability, and critical illness, that's a good thing to have. She might not need a critical illness plan. But in normal cases, if you have only a life insurance policy, you should have a critical illness plan.
We always hear about health insurance, car insurance, or the normal home insurance. Only 2 years ago, someone asked me if I had critical illness cover. There isn't that much awareness in the market. People don't really talk about it as much. Why do you think this is?
So there isn't any awareness is not entirely a statement that I would support, because we recently did a survey with YouGov, and what respondents told us that 8 out of 10 people knew somebody in their family, in their friend circle, or in their immediate circle of somebody who had a critical illness. So they are aware. So in the back of the mind, they have seen this, they have heard this. What is lacking today is their ability to take an action of that awareness, right?
Yeah.
The survey also told us that 50% of the people, as I mentioned earlier, think that if they are diagnosed with an illness, then their savings will deplete in less than 3 months. In less than 90 days, they won't have money left. And another 50% of the people say that if the critical illness comes to them, they will have to leave the country because they can't afford the treatment. So awareness is there very much, Poonam. What is lacking is people are not taking an action of that awareness. But at the same time, insurance companies like us have a responsibility to make sure that awareness is spread much more. And that's what we do at Zurich Advisory Network. We have a team of about 100 people who go out and meet customers every single day, understand their needs, and provide them with a report of what they can do to take care of those needs. That includes life insurance, disability insurance, critical illness insurance, and also long-term savings for education and retirement. So that's what we do.
Now, I think you mentioned that it's good to start looking at it from the age of 18. Is that what you said?
Yeah, critical illness plans normally cover you from time of your age 18.
So let's say there's an 18-year-old, very independent. I mean, can they afford to do that from 18 years old onwards? Not everybody has that much money to put into different things.
It costs as less as $25 a month.
Is it different prices according to your age?
Yeah, price according to the cover you want to buy,
Yeah.
and price according to the age at which you are in, right?
Okay.
So, but I mean, it starts from as low as $25 a month, right? For a small coverage. If you're 18 and if you're $150,000 of minimum cover, then probably it's just $25 a month. That is not a lot of money to protect yourself against $150,000. That's almost 550,000 dirhams.
When did you get your critical illness cover?
11 years ago.
And you just feel a little bit more stable. Have you used any of it?
Oh, no, not yet. Thank you. Thankfully, not yet.
Thankfully, you're
Thankfully,
healthy
not yet. I'm
and
healthy,
happy.
yeah.
So what should we all do in order to be better prepared? What do you think?
I think few steps. First and foremost, don't be under the stage of denial that this is not going to happen to me.
You know what? It's happened in my family, and most of us are in denial. That's the truth. And unfortunately, how do I say this? But mortality is there for all of us, and illnesses. We're lucky if we grow old and healthy and happy. God bless us all. But we just don't know.
Absolutely. So we should not be in the stage of denial. Second is to meet somebody who understands this probably better than us, and which is an insurance advisor. That 1 hour or 45 minutes of a meeting is going to not cost you anything at all, right? At Zurich, we don't charge anything to our customers. We provide a recommendation report at the end of the meeting explaining very detailed what your needs are and what you can do to take care of those needs, right? So 2 steps, don't be under the denial, and meet somebody as soon as possible.
Roger says, are there any other benefits payable under this critical illness insurance plan?
So if you're diagnosed for a critical illness plan, you get paid for that. If you're buying a critical illness plan in conjunction with a life insurance policy, and there are different kinds of life insurance policies. So let's say if you bought a whole of life insurance policy and you have a critical illness attached along with it, then of course there are some bit of savings also in that plan. But again, as I said, these are on a radio show. I'm not too sure how much we will be able to explain that.
Yeah.
But these are things that he should meet an advisor and figure out. There are options where he could save money, keep a small part of saving, protect himself for death, disability, and illness as well.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned the average cost. Lena says, can you cancel the cover at any time that you want, or is there a minimum time you have to keep paying it for?
So you normally buy a policy. Let's say, for example, I bought the policy and I bought it until the age of 70, but I keep paying premiums.
That's interesting. So you stopped at the age of 70. Why is that? Why didn't you take it further?
That policy covered only until the age of 70.
Now that's interesting, because then what happens after 70 to us all?
So critical illness policies usually end at the age of 70. In our case, it ends at the age of 75. So until that period, you cover yourself, right? And you pay the premiums to cover yourself. After 75 or 70, whatever that age is, if you're diagnosed of an illness, you're not covered.
But that's a shame, because if you think about it, we're all living a lot longer. So should these covers eventually change just to adapt to that?
Yeah, I will vote for that. We should definitely look at. But also remember, the older you are, the cost of insurance becomes higher.
I know.
Right? Which means if we have to charge you, this is technical, but I hope I'm able to explain this. But if we have to charge you one premium for all of your years, if we end up covering you till 80, 90, 100, then the cost will be higher, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And which is something that you wouldn't want to pay today for a possible coverage at the age of 80 or 85.
That's why I lie on my critical illness cover next time you interview me.
Money Matters
On afternoons with Helen Farmer.
with Zurich Life Insurance. Take optimistic action and shape your financial future with Zurich Life Insurance.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
So Manoj, for us is text saying, what happens if my employment status changes? Can I take my cover with me?
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's the biggest advantage of having a personal critical illness plan. You could carry that policy wherever with you. It's a portable policy. I could buy it here in Dubai today. And if tomorrow my employment status changed and I'm changing jobs over here, I could still keep that policy, which a health insurance you cannot keep. That's a good question for us. And if I leave the country tomorrow, I could carry this policy with me and pay the premiums from anywhere else.
Okay, that's good to know. Mona says, am I free? I know you've answered this, but let's just answer it again for her in case anyone wasn't listening. Am I free to spend the proceeds of the critical illness cover the way that I want to?
Absolutely, yes, Mona. And I hope no situation arises where a critical illness claim has to be paid for you. But if, God forbid, you have you have to file a claim, then the proceeds come to you upon diagnosis, and that's it. You could spend the money the way you want to do it.
Well, this question's actually very good, and it gives me a headache because it talks about how many insurance covers there are in the world that we deal with on a daily basis. Sadiq says, what's the difference between critical illness insurance, terminal illness insurance, and long-term care insurance? All sounds very scary. Can you answer that question?
It has to be then a long answer, but I'll probably say a critical illness insurance pays you money for if you're diagnosed for a critical illness. Terminal illness is usually paid if a decision has been made that you're so sick that death is inevitable and it's within a specified period of time. That's when part of the proceeds of your insurance policy comes to you when you're terminally ill. Long-term care is a very different discussion.
It's a whole
maybe
other
a different
topic.
show altogether.
So before you came on the show, we were just chatting off air, and I was talking about how there's so many insurance covers that we all have to take care of just to live every day, and we've got car insurance and this, and you said, well, car insurance is mandatory, and I said, why isn't things to do with us as human beings mandatory and more important than the stuff that we drive and that we own?
Because if you're driving a car, you could not just do damage to yourself, but to others as well. That's number one.
Right.
And also, we cannot mandate your life's choices. These are your choices, right? We can help you, guide you, help you understand how much of protection you require, and probably do a bit of a nudge so that you could buy, which is what I'm going to do after the show, so you end up buying one insurance
Wow,
policy.
do I get a discount, Manoj?
We'll talk about it.
Well, the thing is, I'm hoping to live a long life, so after 70, what's going to happen to me?
Let's have that conversation off air.
Okay, so what I just want to end with, if people out there, they don't want to have a one-to-one meeting. Sometimes people are worried that it's going to cost them something. They haven't got the time. Where can we have more awareness? What are you guys doing at Zurich to inform us all about this?
So what we do is, we have a team of 100 plus advisors who meet customers every single day at Zurich Advisory Network. That's definitely one way that we reach out to people. And if anybody wants to have their own personal insurance report or personal recommendation report, which I mentioned earlier, they could just simply call Zurich on 800 Zurich, or they could visit our website and say that they would want to meet an advisor. We also do a lot of seminars. So watch out our website. We advertise for it. So register for the next one. We also go and meet, do a lot of events and stuff. So that could be the way that they could reach out to us. There's so many ways to reach out to us. And that's what we do typically for making sure that we create an awareness. We speak to people individually. We go out, sponsor events and talk on those events. We run other, shows like this. This is probably reaching out to thousands of people.
I hope more than 1,000. And have you noticed an increase in it since the pandemic?
Since the pandemic, we've seen an increase in number of people during the peak of pandemic calling us to understand their life insurance cover, already cover that they had purchased from Zurich. So we saw that a typical increase in that. During the COVID period, we saw a lot of people willing to meet up with us as well because they were concerned. They saw deaths, they saw so many people suffering around them. So there was an increased number of people wanting to meet up with us. As we are starting to move away from those limitations of the pandemic and back to our normal life, we are going back to our old stage of denial. And now typically we see less people wanting to meet up with us.
So Paul's text, he agrees with me. He said, explaining things so well, but he doesn't understand why the insurance ends at 72. He says that doesn't really make sense, especially as you get older. But I know what you're saying. It costs more. But would you have an answer for Paul?
So in our whole of life policy, we also provide critical illness coverage over there. And in that whole of life policy, critical illness, it is covered till age 95. So that should not be an issue. That's what I was saying. We could talk off air with you, Poonam, to make sure that you have a critical illness plan. So absolutely, yes. Our critical illness plans also cover till for the whole of life. So we do have that.
Okay, that's amazing. Manoj, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for answering all these questions and my questions that I had no idea about. And we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Poonam.